And so as I said, I have dealt with this my whole life, and I'm one of those people that doesn't keep a lot of unhealthy food in the house because I
Mhm.
do, I do gravitate to it, and I think working from home makes it even more difficult, right? Because it's all there. But this morning I had a dermatology appointment,
Mm.
and I had a couple little spots that she needed to spray, and she did the one on I have one above my eye, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's the precancerous one."
Mm.
And I was like, "I have been to you for 10 years, and this spot keeps being sprayed, and not once has she mentioned the cancer word." So on the way home, what did I do? I stopped at a gas station and bought potato chips.
Mhm.
I have not done that for a very long time. And so I just wanted to ask you how you would deal with something like that with a client,
Mhm.
just going through, because I was thinking of the look to learn. And so can we use that as like a little mini case study of
Sure.
how you would deal with something like that?
Yeah. So when you were stopping, or even if you could even like back it up to before you were stopping, as you were sort of unconsciously or even consciously making the decision of like, I'm going to go get potato chips. How are you feeling? Mad, sad, glad, scared, or bad? Mad, glad, sad, scared, or bad?
Probably a combination. So I was mad that she hadn't mentioned this to me before because it had been a couple years since an appointment and I would have made it much more of a priority.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was scared because my parents both they've had cancerous things on their face, my
Mm-hmm.
dad in particular. So mad, I was scared, and yeah, I think those were the two, and just kind of, and pissed off. Like I was really pissed off that I don't want to have this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't tell me, and I don't want to have this. So yeah, it
Right.
was a combination.
Great. So two like heavy hitters. So we have anger and we
Mhm.
have fear.
Right.
So if we were working together, as I was sharing, one of the first steps that we do is about building emotional fitness. So one of the sort of or let me back up. Building emotional fitness in that we have to learn how to manage these emotions rather than cope. So coping is an escape, right? It's the getting potato chips at the gas station. But how do we manage two of the most intense emotions that, particularly as women, we will have to face? And there's a lot of like therapy, for example, they'll tell you, oh, just feel your feelings.
Right.
But that feels crappy, right? Like this feels crappy to feel pissed off and angry, and you've got things to do today. So, how do we deal with that? So, for me, I created a series of tools, one called the fear flush. So, you could use the fear flush directly on your fear, and then it would also support you with your anger. But another method and another process that I teach is called digesting emotions. So we already actually started the process, is simply identifying, how do I feel? Mad, sad, glad, scared, bad. And simply identifying is like, oh my gosh, I am not insane. There are reasons why I feel the way that I feel, which is very different than probably what you, and I know for myself, experienced as a child, right? As a child, you were probably told, don't feel that way, you're wrong. Or it was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, you're fine, brushing it off, no big
Right.
deal,
Get over it. Yeah.
right? Just like, psh. So, like, that's not helpful either.
Right.
So, we have feel your feelings, which just has you sit in them, or forget about it, which is just denial. None of those things are healthy. So, I created things like the fear flush, digesting emotions, to help us say, oh my gosh, I am afraid. Let me reach a tool. Let me have a lifeline so that I can be at the gas station and literally working through my emotions in a matter of seconds so that those potato chips aren't my saving grace anymore. And what that does is that it reclaims your power, right? Because when we're in the emotional eating cycle, it's like, oh my gosh, potato chips are my whatever, they're my savior.
Right.
But as we escape from emotional eating, we have to be our own savior. We have to be the ones that say, you know what? Feeling angry is a right way to feel. There's a responsibility to the doctor here and transparency. And feeling scared, absolutely another right way to feel.
Right.
And then we bring it down to what is it that you really need? And being able to answer that not from a place of vengeance, not from a place of defense, but really from like, what do I need to do to really support myself? Because it's not going to look like potato chips. It could look another way. So that's just one example of sort of
That's
like
great.
the pathway that we would take. And this is, you know, what would lead us down to the roots of emotional eating and really having a deeper conversation, because this pattern probably shows up for you and even for people who are listening in a variety of ways, but the roots of it are always the same.
Thank you, because I wanted to give that example because I know that people can relate to it, and I like what you're saying, and I think you're really correct. We're taught to either do the therapy thing and wallow in it,
Yeah,
or just, you know, suck it up, put on your big girl panties, neither of which are really honoring who we are. And I
exactly.
did have it's funny, I did have somewhat of a thought of like, well, maybe I'll call my husband. Like you immediately go to hunger. And so rather than
Mhm.
taking the space to feel it and talk it through, I thought, well, maybe I'll call my husband. It's like, oh, he's busy. And then of course the potato chips were like, I'll numb. That was it. I
Right,
will numb. I will
right.
numb it until I can have a chance to kind of deal with it. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, great. I think it's a good example, and I think the way you deal with it is excellent. That you have tools that people can use instead of driving to the gas station.
Hmm.
Um,
And
and
there
there,
have been times where I have pulled out the food from the pantry and had a moment where I'm like, wait a second, I don't need to do this, and have immediately reached for a tool, used it, and then put the food back in the pantry. I have actually had that experience, and it works every time.
good,
Just do things differently.
because the issue is not the potato chips.
No.
The solution, I mean, you know, and you know that the solution is not the potato chips. And just as an aside, and I do this very, very rarely, buying food at a gas station makes you feel terrible about yourself. It
It's
does.
not a nourishing
It's
experience.
not. I think it's like buying, you know, beer at a gas station. I don't know. It just does not feel like it is not a nourishing experience.
Yeah.
So
It's not in integrity with our highest self.
it is
If
totally
we
not.
were stranded somewhere, starving, you know, then go for it.
Right.
But, you know, we have so many other choices when it comes to like integrity and food, and
Yes.
we live in abundance when it comes to food. So I am safe I could confidently claim that eating at the gas station was not your only option, but it felt like it in the moment. That's like what is challenging for emotional eaters, that usually when we're in the emotional eating cycle, we've lost like part of our brain. We actually physiologically do lose part of our brain when we're in that fight, flight, freeze state. That's why trying to like bring ourselves back when we're in like a binge or something like that is so difficult.
Right.
But if we can prepare for it and be ahead of it, then we have so many more choices, and you can have those moments of like, wait a second, I don't really need to do this. I have so many other options.
I am delighted that we connected and really support the work that you're doing. I think you bring a lot of hope to a lot of us where this is an issue in our lives. So thank you so much, and I will give people the information so that they can get in touch with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care, Jessica. Bye-bye.